Holy shit, you guys. We are coming out of March. Thank God. We're into April. But we have officially made it to episode 30. That's crazy. Like, I am honestly astounded that I've made it this far, but we're still going. And, in light of this 30th episode, I decided that I really want to start taking more risks when it comes to my content. And our topic today is a little risque, if I do say so myself. All right, it's a little risque. So I am definitely stepping out of my comfort zone with this one. Let me just say, I'm super nervous to talk about it, and I feel like people are gonna look at the title of this episode and be like, "What the fuck?" But I honestly don't give a fuck anymore because, in the words of my bestie Peyton from last episode, who gives a fuck? I just feel like I'm getting to this point in my journey where I'm ready to challenge myself and talk about things that to the outside eye might be a little uncomfortable. And I think that that's part of what I want this show to be and what this show is, If I'm not talking about the stuff that never gets talked about, it's never going to get brought to the surface. So today, let's talk about sex. Here's something that really bothers me when it comes to sex. I feel like a lot of people are really uncomfortable about talking about it. And I understand that this is an intimate thing that happens behind closed doors. And yes, there is always a time and place, but even still, I feel like it just sometimes feels awkward. And I don't think that it should be something that we are all so secretive about and that we feel like we have to mumble about every time we bring it up. And maybe I'm pushing the boundaries a little bit here, but when we were younger, the perception of sex that was pushed on us was that sex is bad. It was like, look at all these diseases that you can have. And this is what happens when you don't wear protection, right? Like, there was all this fear kind of surrounding what sex was. And I don't even ever really remember talking about it in a way that was normal. Like, sex is a very natural and normal human experience, but the way we talk about it sometimes makes it seem like it's not. Do you see what I'm saying? There was never a lesson on consent or what sex brings or adds to a relationship or just like how it even just makes you feel. And I think it was just one of those things that you kind of had to figure out through the grapevine and through friends. All that stuff that never really got talked about, like, what does it feel like? How does it start? How do you know when you're ready? Da 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 da. And all this stuff runs through your mind as a preteen because you don't feel comfortable asking any of these questions to an adult. So at that point, you're just asking your friends who also don't know shit. And I just wish there would have been more transparency around what sex is and the dynamic that it can play in our lives. And sure, I think some of that does come with on-the-job experience. But even now, as an adult who has partaken in intimate activities, sex can feel uncomfortable for me. And not uncomfortable in like, oh my God, this is uncomfortable physically, but like uncomfortable in that, oh my gosh, I've been having sex for so long, but I still don't really feel like I know what I'm doing. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I just wish that there was more openness to talk about set experiences, to like hear from other people. And you know what? I do think that there are people who are comfortable talking about it, but I also think that that's the minority, right? Like, I know that there are people who probably have podcasts about it and who do talk about it openly. But I feel like those conversations are still a part of the minority. It's not in the mainstream. Do you see what I'm saying? Anyways, moving on. As women, I think we definitely think a little too deeply about it when it comes to sex, and maybe not. Maybe that's just part of our nature. And I can't speak for all women. I think this is just how I have come to process it. But it's like when I have sex with somebody, it does feel very intimate. It feels as though I'm giving a part of myself to this other person. Like, you are literally inside of me. So, I mean, fuck, that's about as close as you're going to get to me. You know what I mean? And that can sometimes make me feel ashamed because I'm giving up a part of myself. Does that make sense? I'm giving away some of my power. And I will say, over the years, I have been able to detach from some of that emotional intensity that sex can bring. But because there weren't any conversations around how sex makes you feel, and specifically like how sex makes women feel and how sex makes men feel, like, I had to kind of figure that out on my own. Like, there isn't that open line of communication or information that people can access. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't know how to explain this, but I'm like a very visual person. And I just think I do so much better when I have something in front of me that tells me how to do shit. And I feel like sex is one of those things that nobody really tells you how to do it. You just kind of have to do it to figure it out. And I'm not saying that there should be this whole book on how to fuck somebody. Like, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying, like, I wish there would have been a little bit more openness around the conversation to be able to talk about it and ask questions, in a space that was safe, that it was safe to ask some of those questions. And yeah, I just don't think we were ever given that. And I think even now, I probably could have some safe spaces to talk about that, but because I was never exposed to a space like that, it's harder for me to even bring it up now. Does that make sense? I'm kind of going off the cuffs here, guys, but I just wonder if I would think about sex differently if conversations around sex weren't so uncomfortable for people. I don't know. Anyways, moving on. Bringing it back to this idea that men and women think of sex very differently. And it's not just in the way we think about it, but also in the way we both perceive how the opposite gender feels about it. Hoping that lands, but follow me here. I think as women, we can sometimes feel shameful when it comes to sex. Like, it can make us feel dirty because traditionally, growing up, we've been pushed this perception that women have to be prim and proper and, you know what I mean? Like, we have to have this super feminine energy about us. And if we talk about sex or express our sexual desires, it's not received very well. If we do, it's, oh, she's a hoe, she's a freak. And it's like, no, actually, I'm allowed to have these desires too. Like, and here's an example of this. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the movie Pleasantville. If you haven't, I'll give you a quick Cliff Notes version, but it's basically about this town that is very black and white, okay? Literally and figuratively. Everything they do in this town is very surface level. There's firemen, but no fires. There's policemen, but no crimes. People date, but there's no real intimacy. So you get what I'm saying? And throughout this movie, things slowly start to turn into color as people start to kind of break out of these norms and break out of these traditional boundaries that have been placed in this world that they're in, okay? And there's a scene where the mom enjoys an intimate moment with herself after, like, her daughter kind of encouraged her to explore that. But when that conversation between her and her daughter was being had, you know, the mom was really appalled. She was like, what? Like, that's crazy to think that we can have those desires to do something like that, right? And anyways, after she has that intimate moment with herself, she is like turning into color. And then her husband notices it. And I'd have to rewatch this part again, but I want to say there was a moment where her husband kind of, asked her about her change in color. And I think she expressed to him in some way some things. And I don't know how well it was received by him. It could have been received well, whatever. I need to rewatch it. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make from this movie is that there was still that feeling of shame for doing something or for having those sexual desires, even though it is such a normal thing, okay? It was evident because she was a woman that she felt shameful for wanting to have those desires and wanting to do those things. And I myself have had an encounter like this, and I'm not going to get too graphic, so, hold your horses, okay? But there was a time in my life where I wasn't really looking for a relationship. I was just looking to have a little fun, okay? I wasn't getting crazy, but women are allowed to have sexual desires too, We need our needs met, so fucking sue me. Anyway, this was in my college era, okay? Junior year, I'm testing the waters, watering some grass. Okay, I'm dipping my toes in to see what's good. I'm not necessarily looking for my husband right now. I'm just seeing what's available and taking advantage of the scenery that's in front of me, okay? So there was this one guy who I kind of was in a relationship with, but not really. So we'll label it a situationship. Because there was no labels, right? Like, I have no allegiance to you. There wasn't a conversation around exclusivity. So I'm going to do what I do. I'm not obligated to be loyal to you. So if an opportunity presents itself to me, I'm allowed to pursue that. And to be honest, the situationship wasn't really going anywhere sexually. And so those needs of mine were not being met. And absolutely, I'm going to go seek that out somewhere else. Okay? It's like, you don't want a relationship with me, but you also don't want to have sex with me. So, like, what the fuck are we doing here? You know what I mean? Anyways, I end up having a one-night stand with someone else. And, sex wasn't great, but whatever. Got my fill. Next weekend comes around. I show up to this house party. Mind you, okay, my college operated a lot like high school. To give you some perspective, I graduated with 3 other people in my major. That's how small my college was. It was basically just a bunch of athletes who all drank and partied together while also doing sweet shit athletically, while also sort of trying to get a degree at the same time. But because it was so small, shit got around quickly. So stick with me here, okay? One night stand boy was on the football team. Situationship boy was not on the football team, but his roommate was. So situation boy comes up to me at this house party talking about so I hear you be hoeing around with the football players now, or some stupid ass shit like that. And I just looked at him and I was like, and what about it? Like, what did you expect me to do? I have no allegiance to you. I'm not obligated to be loyal to you. Like, what the fuck? But do you see what I'm saying though? It's like, there was so much judgment placed on me because I had sexual desires of my own. And I went out to fill that need for myself. But it's like, if men do it, it's a pat on the back. Let me buy you a beer, buddy. Hell yeah, you got in that? You got in it? It's like, what the fuck is that about? Seriously. And that makes us as women feel really shameful because to men, having sex is perceived as this accomplishment. And that really pisses me off that we as women are perceived in a way that is disrespectful just for wanting the same things. Like, that does not, I don't understand that. Like, you're allowed to have these sexual desires, But when I go off and have my own sexual desires, that's a problem. Like, hello? Were you not just trying to do the same? I don't understand that. Anyway, as I've gotten older, I do take sex a little bit more seriously now, especially if I'm spending, an ample amount of time with somebody outside of sexual intimacy. Sex for women is very emotional. Like I mentioned before, we're giving ourselves over to somebody in a way. And whether we like to admit that or not, and also depending on the situation, but it can deepen our emotions and how we feel about that person, and sometimes even cloud our judgment. Like, now that I've had sex with you, there's meaning behind that for me. We've spent time together outside of sexual intimacy, but now that we've had sex and have continued to have sex, it's deepening the meaning for me, okay? But what I've found is that with men, that's not always the case. So now there's a disconnect. How I feel about you and how you feel about me isn't on the same level. But oftentimes, I don't figure this out until I get vulnerable with this person about, wanting to grow the relationship, wanting to see where this could go. And then they want no part of that. And I think if men and women were a little bit more transparent in how they feel about sex, situations like that could be avoided. But again, it's like no one talks about sex because nobody really knows how to. That's the real thing, I think, is that I don't think people know how to have these conversations because it does feel really awkward and it can be uncomfortable. And if you aren't in a space to feel safe talking to that other person, it's just going to make it kind of 10 times harder. And, conversations around sex, I think this is kind of leading into my next point, but there is a lot of pressure to pleasure your partner as well, right? Especially when you first start having sex with one another, like you're trying to figure out what that other person likes and how your bodies kind of connect with one another. And there's this underlying fear that if they don't reach their climax, then it's my fault. Like you did something wrong. And this is a tricky one for me because I've had a couple men ask me like, what do you like? What makes you get to that point? Or they'll say some shit like, it's always so awkward when you first start having sex with somebody because you're trying to get to know each other's bodies. And I really struggle with navigating this conversation because I don't know if I have the answers for that yet. And it makes me feel shameful because I'm like, I am not as sexually in tune with my body as I wish that I was, because I'm sure there are a lot of other women out there who are very sexually in tune with their bodies and know exactly what they like and send them on a ship on their merry way. Like they understand their bodies in that way. This is something that I'm still trying to figure out. So when this kind of gets brought up, it's very, very uncomfortable for me. And the other thing I think too is that part of sex is being exploratory together. Like what one guy did for me might not be what you can do for me. And at the end of the day, okay, most women are not going to just get off by having sex, okay? It doesn't work that way. It doesn't fucking work that way. Like, let's just be fucking for real. And another thing, just because we have sex and I don't get off doesn't mean that I'm not still enjoying it. I'm just here for the experience. Like, go ahead and just explore me. I'll just sit back and be your playground for the night. Go ahead and find a secret tunnel and try something out. I don't fucking know. Hopefully that makes sense. But at the end of the day, yes, reaching that climax does enhance the experience. But I struggle with when people ask me like that question of what do you like and how do I get you to where you are, especially like right after the deed is done. It feels insensitive to me. And maybe I'm taking this out of context, but it just gives off this perception that I'm doing something wrong because I didn't tell you how to get me there. Does that make sense? And it's like, babe, if anything, I'm the only one that has the right to be upset right now. I'm the one that didn't reach that point. So don't try to make me feel bad because I didn't tell you what to do to get me there. What? I don't know. And again, I could be taking that too personally, and maybe it's honestly not that deep, but that's just how I feel about it. And I don't know, maybe that is like a goal for men too in bed. Like they want to pleasure their partner and feel the pressure to do that. Like, but at the same time, women feel that too. Like we feel that pressure too. I definitely feel inadequate if I don't pleasure that other person's. It's a shot to the ego at that point. You know, it's like I must be bad in bed because they didn't finish. And then you start to overthink everything. Like maybe I'm not sexy enough. Maybe I wasn't dominant enough. And what if they're not attracted to me anymore because I wasn't able to please them? And it can make you feel like you have no idea what you're doing and that you're just bad at having sex. Do you see what I'm saying? So, yeah, I think there is pressure on both sides because there is something about getting your partner to that point that does feel accomplishing, but at the same time, it also enhances the attraction that you have to one another. You know, it makes you feel good when you're able to satisfy that other person. But I think it's at the end of the day, I think it just takes patience between you and that other person to try to figure out, you know, what each other likes. Because, like I mentioned before, you know, what worked with one partner might not work with this partner, and everybody's body is different, and it is awkward at first, and it's, you know, hard to navigate. But I think the conversation needs to be a lot more safe in order to feel like you can express how you feel about sex, honestly. Wow. Alrighty. I think we accomplished the sex talk. We had the conversation. We talked about sex. And I'll admit, this episode was hard for me. It was hard to get through. It felt very awkward. And it was a little uncomfortable for me. But again, it's one of those things that people don't necessarily talk about, and we need to start talking about it. I need to start talking about it too. I want to feel more comfortable talking about it and being open about it, because sex shouldn't be this taboo thing that only ever gets talked about behind closed doors. There should be a level of transparency between men and women when it comes to this, because it is such a normal thing. It's part of human nature. But we treat sex as if it's forbidden. And again, I do understand that it is a very intimate act, but it's not the 1900s anymore, people. Okay? We should be allowed to talk about sex and not feel awkward or icky about it. So anyway, that's my thoughts on sex. Maybe my stances will change as I gain more experiences and get more in tune sexually with myself as well. But anyway, I hope you guys took something from this. Again, this was definitely a challenge for me to talk about this, but it felt good to get outside of that comfort zone a little bit and talk about the uncomfortable things. So I hope it was insightful, or at the very least entertaining. Okay. And I'll see you guys next week. All right. Peace.